Welcome to the Calm Cockpit, where pilots of all levels learn how to stay sharp under pressure, discover high-performance tools, and learn from professionals who can help you fly smarter and stress less.
Today we're talking about something most pilots desperately need, but rarely give themselves: permission to have downtime.
We're not talking about vegging out on your phone downtime, but that real mental white space, that cognitive recovery time that protects your performance, your health, and your longevity.
Because recovery debt is real. When we skip true rest, fatigue builds, motivation drops, and burnout creeps in quietly, at least until our system is forced to reset.
So we are here to reframe downtime and mental white space that it's not indulgent. It's human system maintenance. It's going to preserve your safety margin, your emotional regulation, and your cognitive clarity so your skills can actually shine.
In this episode, we'll share 5 practical strategies that will help you use downtime to your advantage.
We'll talk about why scrolling doesn't count as rest, how stress sneaks up on us high performers, and how small intentional pauses can restore your ease, endurance, and focus, both in the cockpit and in life.
If you want more clarity, less overload, and better performance without sacrificing your health, you're in the right place.
The Calm Cockpit podcast starts now.
Onyx 1-2 Mike Oscar, runway 27, clear for takeoff.
Welcome, everyone, to today's episode. I'm Geeta Brown, yoga and meditation educator and music educator with over 30 years of experience in teaching high performers how to improve their lives without adding stress. And I'm a midlife student pilot.
And I'm John Niehaus, corporate pilot and longtime flight instructor.
So, people, consider this your invitation today from me to you. This is your invitation to pause, assess, and reflect on your pace in life. Let's all just maybe even do that right now. Let's take a slow, deep breath in. And a long exhale. If you didn't do that one, do this one with me. Take a slow, deep breath in. And a long, emptying exhale. This is my invitation to you, my fellow aviators and pilots, and whoever is listening. Life is hard. No matter what we do, it's gonna be hard. Even at the best of times, we all have our struggles. And my invitation is for us to explore today ways to be soft. And ways to be soft so that you can have that career longevity, so that you can feel better and you can actually have those better performance outcomes. It's really about finding that sweet spot for you where your pace is just right, both in how you approach your work and you're actually doing your work of like flying and teaching, but also how you're structuring your downtime so that downtime isn't just this like random thing that you do without intention. It's actually chosen by you to actually meet and match where you're at. So downtime and slowing down doesn't often always mean just shutting down and going slower. Sometimes it can actually just mean adding more stuff in that you love, which we'll get into. So I want to give a few examples here that are a little more concrete of what I'm talking about. Okay, I grew up in Chicago. I'm a Chicago Bulls fan. I grew up watching Michael Jordan play. And what I loved about him was he was like that balance of effort and ease. He knew when to put total effort in. And by putting the right effort in at the right times, when he played, it looked like it was effortless. Or, John, I don't know if you watch tennis, but have you seen Roger Federer?
I am not a tennis fan, but I do know who he is.
Okay, I mean, like he's uber famous. So, and if you're not a tennis fan, you kind of roll your eyes at sports, just watch a few videos of him playing. Federer, he can be making the most complicated, difficult shot, but what he embodies is you'll see the parts of his body that need to work really hard are working really, really hard. But when you see his face and his demeanor, he looks like a Zen monk. He's like so chill. So he's using the right effort in the right place at the right time, but no more effort than that. And he played for a long time. He really had a lot of career longevity. Another example, just a quick example, just to kind of prime your brain to like what I was thinking about for you guys in this episode is Bruce Lee. He's got this famous quote. I'll link it in the show notes. Be like water, my friend. So it's a really great interview he does, and he goes way into it. But essentially he says, be like water, that water can, when it needs to, it can turn into vapor and just float. When water needs to crash, it can crash with a force that can break a building. When it needs to be solid and steady, it can freeze. And his point was that you want to have a nervous system and a mind and a lifestyle where at any moment you can choose how to direct your energy for the task at hand. He's got that great, be like water, my friend. It's a fantastic, I'll link the interview. I really recommend listening to those little quotes because he's very eloquent. But my whole point here is that in our modern life and in aviation training, and I would say a lot in the Western culture, we're really trained to try hard. You've talked about it, that like rise and grinds mentality, like get at it. And I totally love trying hard. I love getting into something. I love cranking out that last set at the gym. There's a time and there's a place for that. Like we need that. But there's also a time and a place to actually train the other quality as well. And that's what today's episode is about. And each person, you guys listening, have to find your own pace. You have to assess what do you need when, how you need to apply these tools that I'm going to give to you, because everyone is different and every day is going to be different in that. So this is my invitation that starting to strategize and use both downtime and mental white space to your advantage and use it more intentionally. It's not just switching off, you're actually curating a pace for your life that really, really works. So I do want to spend just a little bit of time kind of going to the dark side of all of this for a minute, because I really want to drill into like, why should we care? And it can be like a little bit of what we used to call Debbie Downer. Don't be such a Debbie Downer. But I think it's really worth it before I give you like, oh, here's the actual tool and the strategy to like help all of this or to experiment with. Actually, let's drill into a little bit. What are our reflexive patterns when it comes to downtime? What are our own internal biases that we've just kind of bought into from culture and we never stop to think, does this actually serve me or does it actually not even serve me? And I can actually give myself permission to think differently. Just awareness of our own patterns can kind of prompt a change. So we're going to kind of just drill into a little bit of like, why should we care about mental white space? What are the things that get in the way of it? And what are the ripple on effects when we actually don't cultivate these soft skills just as much as we train the actual, stick and rudder, putting the butt in the seat and doing the hard work. And then I have about 5 in mind that I want to share with you guys. But to be honest, I don't know that we're going to get to all 5 techniques. We're just going to kind of roll with it. But I'm going to give you the greatest hits of stress reduction that have worked for myself and my students. Just different tools for you to play with that you can start thinking about intentionally for yourself, how you might want to structure these soft skills, your downtime, your rest, your white space, so that you can play with it. And not that you have to do any one of those techniques, but it just gets your brain kind of thinking of ideas so that you can adjust, adapt, and modify for yourself. And as always, as any point when I'm talking, you're like, I know that already, I know that already, I know that already. Catch yourself and start to think, what can I learn? What can I apply? What can I refine a little bit? So come with an open mind, and at the end of it, take what works and leave the rest.
Well, and there's a difference between knowing and doing, right? Because I might know that, but I still might have that mental boundary of like, I got too much stuff going on. I'm not going to do that. Even though I acknowledge that it works, I'm too good for it. I have things to do. I'm busy. So sometimes just hearing it again maybe convinces you to go, I am very busy, but maybe I might be able to try this just one more time and see if it works.
That is me like every day. And I live and breathe this stuff since I was in high school for over 30 years. I have to consistently remind my mind about how important this is and how good I feel after it when I've done these different techniques. It is a battle for those of us who like to do and like to be engaged. And that's normal. That's actually part of the process. I'm really glad you brought that up. I love the community support of just hearing someone else validate that this work is important, it's real, and it matters. And that's why for myself personally, I schedule it into my schedule in the week so that my brain can't wiggle out of it. I put it in there. It's a task to do that I have to check off on a to-do list, just like studying. And that has helped me kind of reframe it because I'm like, oh, it's work. It's part of work. So that's actually one of the first points I wanted to make, a kind of like the Debbie Downer side of things, which is like that cognitive overload. I don't know about you, John, but I'm an empath. I think you have a strong empathic side as well, where we pick up on other people and we bring all of that in as well as
terrible.
It's terrible.
I hate it.
It's terrible, but it's awesome. And if you are someone who identifies like as an introvert, a lot of times people who are introverts are actually very strong empaths. It's not that they just want to be alone and not around other people. It's that they experience being around other people so intensely that it's like instead of having 27,000 nerve endings, you have 1,000,000. And so what you're experiencing compared to someone like my husband, who like nothing reaches his shell at all until you like knock on the door and go, hey, let me in. We experience everything just 1,000-fold. It can be exhausting. And then you add to that all the cognitive tasks of being a grown adult, all the life stuff you have to deal with, the career stuff, and then you're flying an airplane. So this can all lead really quickly to like that cognitive overload. And we know the studies are very clear. When we have cognitive overload, which is just you're thinking too much, constantly thinking and ruminating and processing everything that happened during the day, it reduces our executive functioning. Executive functioning is just like it sounds like. It's that very, very smart part of our brain that has the ability to pause, assess, and then actually decide what next action we're going to take. And without the downtime and actually telling our brain that now is time to take the activity from a 10 to even like a 7, the brain stays in that constant mode of switching tasks and assessing what just happened. It keeps ping-ponging from this thing that person said, this thing that I picked up from that person, wondering what happened there, thinking about the next thing you have to, we all know it. In yoga, we call it the monkey mind. It feels like ping pong balls just going around. And when our brain is in that constant state, that's what degrades our decision-making quality, our working memory, our situational awareness. It's like, we think of it in yoga, we say that your garbage is overflowing, but it truly is cognitive overload because your brain is designed to take information in. And when we rest, that's when the brain then gets rid of the things you don't need and it integrates the stuff that you do need into your long-term memory. So cognitive overload is a real thing. And if you're operating on this on everyday life, kind of an overload, and then you go into an airplane, wow, you might still feel productive, but you're operating with like a narrowed cognitive bandwidth. And that can really bite you in the butt in an emergency situation. Or when you go home and your honey says to you that they had a hard diagnosis at the doctor, and then everything falls like a Jenga tower, It's really tough. So as I'm going through a couple more of these, just think about yourself, or sometimes it's easier to see this in other people too. You can kind of recognize people that who you see operating this, and then you can kind of reflect. And I usually go, yeah, me too. I do that too. It's really easy though. It's easier to see it in other people. So if that helps too, we can kind of assess. A couple other things that happen when we don't do this. One thing that happens physiologically and physically is that your stress hormones stay elevated. That's the first. And the second is that your nervous system stays in a constant state of sympathetic nervous system arousal. Okay, why am I going to spend a few minutes talking about this? These are the facts that for me personally help me to actually schedule downtime in my calendar as if it's a real non-negotiable thing. For some reason, these facts make it seem real to my mind and help me cut through what you were talking about, John, of like that resistance to taking downtime. Helps to really cut through that. There's a lot to this. We could do a whole episode, but just on the stress hormone part, cortisol is a wonderful hormone we have. When you wake up in the morning and you have that little, or maybe not so little burst of energy that gets you out of bed, where, the like rip off the covers and actually get up and go brush the teeth.
I can't say I get that.
But you do get out of bed.
It is so much effort to get out of bed in the morning.
It is so much effort, but you can thank dearest cortisol for helping you with that, because it's actually a spike of cortisol we get in the morning of this quote unquote stress hormone that's gotten kind of a bad name in society these days. Elevated cortisol levels, look out. No, we like cortisol. It's what helps you, even begrudgingly, John, to crawl out of bed in the morning. That cortisol spike helps to kind of like create that alertness, gets us moving, gets us out of that total absolutely sound asleep state. But when cortisol is elevated, that's when we run into problems. That's when we run into that chronic inflammation in the body that a lot of times can show up as chronic pain. And when you have little signs of your stress hormones being elevated, think about, do you have things like that chronic pain in the body? You have that niggling injury that no matter what you do just never goes away. You have a rumination on a thought about something that happened maybe a year ago, 3 months ago, and you just keep thinking about it. That very often is the effect of stress hormones kicking in at such a high level that even if you want to think differently, the chemical makeup of your body with the elevated cortisol is not primed to then produce happy hormones like the dopamine and serotonin, which help us feel good. So when we keep ourselves in this elevated level of not allowing rest, we're literally dampening our capacity to feel joy, happiness, and satisfaction. You can't think your way out of it if your brain is a chemical stew of stress. It's kind of like putting the brakes on the mind through the body, if that makes sense. So cortisol is just one example. Adrenaline is another one that stays elevated. You'll see a lot of things. If you're someone who has chronic pain, obviously go to your doctor, talk about that. But many, many studies have shown that when you engage in regular mindfulness and stress reduction techniques, the perception of pain goes down across the board. And for all the doctors who at some point they don't know what to do with chronically ill patients who have pain, they send them to teachers like me because they're like, we don't know what else to do, but we know that this is at least going to help you. The other little facet was the chronic nervous system arousal. Very reductionist. You got these two kind of functions of the nervous system. So it's your brainstem. It goes down through your spinal cord, and it goes all the way out through all the nerves in your body. When you're in that fight, freeze, or flee moment, engine out at 500 AGL, something like that, sympathetic nervous system goes into overdrive, which is where you get that tunnel vision because your body is focused on primary keeping you alive. It shuts down blood flow to your digestion because you don't need to digest in that moment. That's why you'll get butterflies in the stomach. It will make your fingertips really slick and slippery with sweat because you're trying to evade someone who might catch you. So you want to be that slick, slippery. Yeah, these are ancient defense mechanisms. The pupils, actions happen to the pupil to let more light in so that you can, function, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of this cascade happens. But what sort of has happened in modern times is that continual, we go to work, we have some stress there that we like. It feels good. We engage with it. But then we're on the drive home. We maybe have stress in traffic. Then we get home, we're engaged with the family, but we're also on our smartphone, or we go to the laptop, we do more work. And that elevated level of that sympathetic drive, it may downregulate a little bit so that we think we're quote unquote relaxed, but maybe on a scale of a 1 to 10, we're not in full on fight, freeze, or flee, but we're pretty darn close. It's just that we're not at a 10, we're at a 7, and we go, oh, I'm relaxed now. But to your sympathetic nervous system, it still is pumping out all of those same things. That's where we have chronic issues with digestion. Again, chronic pain comes in, tension, headaches, the snapping at the spouse for no reason. The body over time starts to normalize that level of activation, and it starts to perceive normal life as a threat. So when someone cuts you off in traffic or enters the pattern incorrectly on a non-towered airport, which perhaps I've seen a few times, we can have this huge explosive reaction of anger or fear or panic that's outsized to the external stimulus because we've been operating at an elevated level of sympathetic drive. Make sense so far?
It does. It's funny. Just one quick point. I've said it before, but it's interesting to see how this podcast has changed my social media feed because it's almost like it's like listening to you on on my computer. Because right now, the big thing that keeps coming up, and it's interesting because it gives us things to talk about on the show. But you mentioned cortisol. I have so many ads of, oh, you have high cortisol. Yep. Here's all of these solutions. And do you know that belly fat that you can't get rid of? Right. That's caused by elevated high levels of cortisol. Here's a mushroom coffee. Here's a meditation. Here's all these things that are going to make you like perfect. Yep. And so you're right. It has gotten a bad rap because as far as I'm concerned, from everything I've been inundated with for the last month and a half, it's nothing but, wow, boy, that's how do you lower that? How do you get rid of it? What do you do? So it's interesting to learn a little bit more about what that actually is and what's different between reality and some of the gimmicks that show up on social media. Because my goodness,
Yes.
any of those solutions are expensive. So they're charging you a lot of money for something that's either completely bogus or unnecessary at the very least.
Amen. Yes, absolutely 100%. It has definitely gotten a bad rap, but your body operates in a constant chemical stew of neurotransmitters, hormones, cellular repair and functions. It's not just one isolated thing. And the wellness trends will always do this thing. We'll stay on the sidebar for just a moment. The wellness trends will find their bad boy of the moment. Many years ago, it was candida. An overgrowth of yeast in your gut was the cause of everything. And everything was all about how to heal your candida outgrowth, blah, blah, blah. They rotate through different gimmick, different year. They just go on and on. So you like cortisol. We need it. It is a functioning part of ourselves that keeps us in homeostasis. You don't need a mushroom coffee to help you release your cortisol. We got two more in this kind of like what happens when you don't take care of this, and then we'll get you on to some really positive sides of the things and what you can actually kind of start to manage around this as you might start to identify with these or not. One thing is like that emotional release. And I would say this is probably one of the number one things that I see as a yoga teacher, both in like the therapeutic applications of yoga that I teach, but also just in the populations of people who just roll up on into a health club and say, hey, I'm an athlete. I'm going to take some yoga. I just kind of want to get a little ease in my body. Is I'm seeing a stacking up of emotional garbage, for lack of a better word. Stuff that happens to us when we don't give ourselves time to process it. It just gets stuck. There's no other way to describe it. Ask anybody who does body work. Ask any massage therapist how many times people burst into tears on the table, and they'll say it happens on the daily. And people you wouldn't ever expect to have it happen. The big, strong, burly guy comes in, they start massaging the trap, and all of a sudden this person is sobbing. Emotions are experienced in the body. Just think about it. If someone says something to you, you might kind of like brace yourself kind of quickly. Or if you ever had that feeling someone says something hard, you feel like you've been punched in the gut. It's experienced in your mind-body system. It doesn't just happen floating up in your brain and your body is just like unaware. It's a whole integrated unit. So the downtime is when those emotions get integrated, and feelings can really stack up on top, especially grief. If you've ever been in grief and you know how heavy that feels, how hard it is to think, then that's again when those small stressors trigger that outsized response. Small little things, all of a sudden you're snapping. You're like, I don't know why. Usually that's because emotions have stacked up. Other people go kind of the other way. They talk about they start to feel numb or detached. Like they just start to disengage from everything a little bit and start to feel kind of flat. And that is also another sign of that like emotional compressing, that there just hasn't been some working through of just how you're feeling. And it doesn't have to be some big like, you don't have to go to a drum circle and howl at the moon. But if you want to do that, please do. But we need some kind of way that's appropriate for each of us to just let ourselves feel what we are feeling, because once you feel it, it usually goes away. But when we push it down, it stays stuck. Last little point, creativity and insight. And this for me is one of my favorites. That's why I got hooked into this, is I wanted to have more creativity as a musician. And so I got into meditation back in high school, and it works. I'm going to teach you guys a thing at the very end of this episode about how to really turn on that creative part of your brain. But insight happens when we pause. So, John, when you go for a run, or like I love lifting weights, when we do those things though, like we feel like that's what's making us stronger. And it is. That's the necessary part. That's the working part. But when our body actually builds the muscle is when we are resting. So a bodybuilder who never rests is going to have less neuromuscular and muscular strength than a bodybuilder who actively has recovery. We know this, and the brain is the same thing. For creativity and insight, we have to put lots of good stuff in, fill the well with lots of things. That's why I have like flowers on my desk over there, beautiful things that sort of are uplifting. And then in the rest time, the brain integrates and connects all of those. And that's actually when neural pathways are formed in the brain, is when we are resting, not when we are learning. This is why I love this technique of learning a new motor skill. And then as soon as you can, after you've learned the new motor skill, whether you're learning how to ride a unicycle, which a fellow midlife pilot told me the other day he learned how to do, riding a unicycle, that's a major skill. Learning how to fly an airplane, or you're getting back to working out again, any physical skill you're doing, immediately as close as you can after that, you do a 10 to 20 minute Yoga Nidra, which we'll talk about at the end, which is just a guided relaxation. Then you go on with your day. There are numerous studies that show that people who take that active rest, that downtime to do a guided relaxation after a new motor skill is learn the motor skill with more clarity, efficiency, and become better at it than people who just do that motor activity and then go on with their busy day and do 1,000 other things. Because that downtime makes it happen.
I'm going to learn to pogo.
Pogo, right? Like, I want video of every step along the way. I want to see this. Yeah, this guy told me he's like up there riding a unicycle. I'm like, how? At midlife? That terrifies me. But I'm like, okay, I think I have to try this now. As long as I can start next to a wall, I'll be good. So all of these kind of negative things, though, they all have this downside, but then they all have that flip good side though too. We could just run through it like super, super quickly. If we have cognitive overload means reduced executive function. Well, when you have properly structured downtime for yourself, that means you're going to have better working memory, better situational awareness. You're going to have higher productivity. You're going to get more done in less time, which is what my students consistently tell me when I train them in these techniques and they actually do them on the regular. They're like, oh my God, I am working so many less hours. I'm so much happier. I wish I had figured this out a long time ago, that the hustle and the grind is actually not as productive as you think it is. If your stress hormones stay elevated and you're going to have chronic pain and chronic irritability, then you're going to get the flip when you have the downtime. More joy, more ease, more fun, more ability to think clearly. You're going to process through your emotions, so you're not going to be carrying around a backpack of junk that happened to you 5 years ago. You can set the backpack down and actually feel differently, and you're going to find more creativity and insight. I hope I haven't oversold this. Now people are going to think this is like the magic bullet for life.
It's going to cure all of my problems.
It's just going to make everything fantastic. And that's why I said at the beginning, like, life is hard. It is so hard. Instead of always trying harder, let's experiment with trying softer and see what happens for yourself. Judge the results from there. So the two, 3 biggest blocks, we already covered one of them to like actually taking this downtime is, like you said, John, is like the angel on one shoulder, devil on the other. I know I want to do it, but then the other part is like, you have so much to do. There's so much happening. I don't want to be seen having downtime. And just notice when that's coming up for you. And I usually just invite a little curiosity. I say, well, let me run an experiment is how I get over that one as well. Let me experiment for 3 weeks of taking a little downtime. You can choose one of the things I'm going to teach you in a couple minutes here, twice a week. I'm just going to run the experiment. I'm not even going to care about what the results are until after the experiment's over. And then that convinces my brain to try it. I'm a daughter of scientists, right? If I run an experiment for 3 weeks, then I'll see what actually happens. And then I'll decide later. That usually gets me over that feeling like I have to buy into it before I've ever even done it. Run an experiment and then see, and then you can adjust from there. That gets me over that little hump. I'm going to give you the first reset that I personally love. It's one I teach to every single student that I have. It's just a 5-point reset. I would say experiment with this one. See how it feels, judge the results later. I always tell my students this technique in particular is largely derivative of all the yoga training I've done. And yoga is this 6,000-year-old tradition. Now that's the oldest writing that we have about yoga, but paper doesn't last very well. So I suspect that they were doing it long before 6,000 years. And that's gone on and on, this unbroken chain, until I'm sitting here in front of this microphone today saying, hey, life is hard. We can try softer. Try this thing and see if it works for you. I'm going to teach this little technique to you. So see how it feels, see how it lands. Just experiment with it. Look for results later. It does not have to feel a certain way while you're doing it. You do not have to feel relaxed. You don't have to feel anything. The art is in the just stopping and paying attention, observing, and then making your adjustments for yourself after the fact. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Cool. So it's a 5-point reset, 5-point body and mind reset. Like super simple. Wherever you are, if you're driving, kind of sketch to do this while you're driving because you might find that your attention kind of like starts to wander a little bit. So you be the judge on that, but please be safe. For goodness sake, concentrate on the road. Whatever you're doing, if you're, cleaning the house or whatever, just pause. We're just going to reset the body with 5 points. So it's super simple. I'll guide it through 3 times and then maybe twice with just like even less instruction. And just kind of see how it goes. This is the one I use when I need a reset. Or if I'm in line at the grocery store and I feel like reaching for my phone, I do this instead. All those points when I would fill my brain with other information, I'm like, oh, let me just do the 5 points real quick.
And I believe you said you were going to do a breakout bonus episode on this as well, correct?
I am. I'm going to do a breakout bonus episode with a full Yoga Nidra, which is a much longer version, much more detailed version of what I'm going to teach you right now. This is like the 2-minute, can eventually get it down to a 10-second little practice you do to kind of reset quickly. So yes, I'll be doing a much longer version. But let's just do that little 5-point reset. So super simple. First action is just to get your body aligned. So have your feet under your knees. You can be sitting or standing. You can even be laying down if you want. Doesn't matter. You can be laying on your belly, however you want to be. Just get your feet and your knees and your hips aligned. That automatically starts to send a signal to the sympathetic nervous system that it is allowed to downshift. It's an inherently stable, grounding position for your body, which then creates that neurochemical stew and brain waves that it is okay to let the parasympathetic nervous system switch on. Wherever you are, check that the shoulders are over the hips. If you're laying down, that just means that they're aligned. If you're seated, that means that you're neither forward nor back, but that you're balanced. And that the crown of the head is just lightly raising up. And just do any moving or wiggling you need to do to where you feel like you have some steady comfort with just your initial seated posture, and that's it. And then simply, we're going to use the spotlight of your awareness to just go through the different points in the body, 5 points. So the first point is the feet. Just become aware of the feet on the floor. If it helps, you can pick up the toes and spread them, even in the shoes, and just send them back down. Awareness to the bottoms of the feet, feeling the contact of the bottom of the foot on the floor. You can even label how that feels. You can label what you feel if you feel the sock, the shoe. Just noticing the contact of the foot on the floor. There's tens of thousands of nerve endings in the feet, and it's the most distant part from the brain. And getting the brain to connect all the way down to the feet helps to connect the mind and body in a way that helps the brain waves to actually begin to already slow down. So awareness is to the feet is point 1. And then point 2 is the hips. Bring awareness to the hips and send them a mental message just to release ever so slightly. You can do one hip at a time if you like. The left hip releases and then the right. And you're just sending that mental message to the hips to release. It doesn't matter if they do anything or not. You're just practicing the art of bringing the awareness to that body part and sending it a message. The feet are 1 point, the hips are the 2nd point, and the spine will be your 3rd area of awareness. Bring awareness to the base of the spine. Send a mental message to the base of the spine to release and trace the spine all the way up. See if you can sense vertebra by vertebra all the way up, particularly stopping on any areas that feel tight, tense, have pain, or when you get there you discover it's out of alignment. And just with the touch of your awareness, that area can come more into alignment and or release any tension or pain you find simply by bringing your awareness to that area. Trace all the way up through the low back, the mid back, up through the neck, all the way. See if you can find the spot where the spine attaches to the skull, which is in between the ears, the whole spine. Then awareness to the shoulders, allowing the shoulders to release. And then awareness to the top of the head, as if there is a silken cord on the top of the head. If you had a crown on, the silken cord would be right in the middle, and that cord is pulling you up towards the ceiling, just creating a little length. And that silken cord is actually helping do some of the work of the spine, can do the work of holding your body up. So then the muscles around the spine can actually soften and release a little bit because your internal structure is now doing the work. Bringing the spotlight of awareness through those 5 points again. The feet. Send a message to the hips to release. All the way up the spine, the whole spine. The shoulders. The top of the head, raising up. And just one more moment in time. Bottoms of the feet, hips, length of the spine, the shoulders, and the top of the head. And in this space, just take a quiet moment just to observe yourself in this position, just noticing yourself. At this point, I would gently ring a bell. Ding! This is one of my favorite practices to do when I find myself rushing, when I find myself wanting to reach for my phone to distract myself or to match the busyness of my mind. Instead, I just sit there and no one has to know you're doing it. I also use it before starting any activity. So before John and I began recording, before I even opened the computer, I just sat for a moment. Feet, hips, spine, shoulders, top of the head. Gets to the point where you can do it in like 5 seconds, and it triggers that little bit of mental white space. It shifts from, maybe an 8 of activity in the mind down to a 6, and it starts to induce that flow state to happen, where the brain waves are such that they're alert and engaged, but also relaxed, which is that Roger Federer, Bruce Lee, Michael Jordan kind of zone that I want to live in.
I feel a little more relaxed.
Nice. And the whole thing of it is too, it's I tell my students all the time and myself, it's not necessary that you feel a certain way. Sometimes when you do that, you might feel the opposite, more agitated, more irritated. It's not necessarily about that we're looking for a specific feeling outcome, as it is we're just giving ourselves permission to pause and to notice what's happening. And sometimes when we pause and we notice what's happening, we'll figure out like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm coming down with something, or I'm actually like really angry about what happened earlier, or I'm really anxious. It doesn't always make me feel quote unquote better in the moment, but what it gives is space and time for my body and mind to process everything that's happened and to prepare for what's coming and to actually be present. And that is the secret sauce. I think people think like yoga and wellness, like you're supposed to always like feel really good and supposed to always feel awesome. It doesn't always. It's just that you're actually in contact with what is, and then you can move skillfully with what you find.
That
So
makes
no
sense.
high set of expectations. If you're like, oh, that brought up different stuff for me, I must be doing it wrong. No. Noticing is the secret sauce.
The idea that relating it back to exercise, not always do you feel better after you exercise. Sometimes you're
Totally.
in pain. Sometimes your muscles feel like they need to be stretched. So that's not necessarily assuming you did it right and didn't overtax yourself. That's not necessarily a bad thing. That little bit of pain just kind of means that you worked at something.
Absolutely. That is a great point. The whole point for all this for me is that the invitation to pause is here for you to take it. And when we pause, we can more clearly notice the pace that we've been running at and assess, is that pace working? Is it working for me? And how do I want to adjust it? Instead of just going on automatic and just going from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing and not actually checking in with ourselves. Which kind of leads us to this next one, which is one that I love. It's a task switching trigger. I'm curious, John, people might know or not know, like we've never actually met in real life. Do you guys know that? We've only ever. True. Although I feel like I know you quite well, but I don't really. But I don't know. When I start working on a project, I get so into it, it's really hard for me to shut down work mode. Do you find that? Or like when you're done, can you just end task and then you can move on to being with the fam?
A little bit of both. Sometimes it depends on what the situation is. In a lot of cases, it's not necessarily an end task, move on to family. It's end task and there's 3 more tasks in the way.
Right.
So it's tough. It really is a struggle for me to actually sit down and enjoy the fruits of your labor, if you will. You always think that you're going to check everything off the list. And if you really are being honest with yourself, you check one thing off, 3 things show up and the list never ends.
It's so
It's
true.
the same thing for people who are at work and you're like, oh, well, if I just work late tonight and get these 3 things done, or if I just work this one Saturday and get these 3 things done, I'm going to get caught up. You're never going to get caught up because there's always more things to do. There's always people that want more out of you. And it's to a point where you actually have to consciously say, it's enough.
Yes.
It's enough. I'm ready.
Yes, this is exactly my point. It's a never-ending well, right? There's no ahead. There's only where you are. Like you literally can't be ahead of the moment you're in, and the work will always keep filling up. Okay, so this is perfect. I used to have a real hard time shutting down. So one of the major ways that I started to create that more mental white space for myself is to have a task switching trigger. This could work in between tasks, like you were saying, John, where you finish one thing, but then there's another to do. Or for me, who has trouble shutting down at the end of a project, I'll just keep working through dinner, ignoring the signs of my body, like low blood sugar. Here comes the cortisol. Cue the bad, quote unquote, hormone. This has really helped me. I got this from Cal Newport, who's a wonderful author and professor. I'll link his work below. I think he wrote this blog post back when blog posts were a thing. People used to have blogs. Everyone has a blog now, but he actually wrote his, and I started doing it and sort of adapted it for myself. So I'm going to share it with you guys. So this is that like leave work at work kind of moment. As I said, I have one that I do prior to tasks, which is I just told you, I do that 5-point, I just do it like a body reset. And then I also set a clear intention before I do something. So like before I teach, I have a really quick statement I say to myself that gets me into teaching mode. And every time I say it, it like switches me into what I need to do. I have a phrase I say to myself before I fly. Those things really help me at the start, but at the end, I need something a little bigger than just a quick intention. So at the end of a project, at the end, it's kind of like a debrief. The number one thing is I'll look at the task I just did. Say I'm studying for my check ride. I'll use that as an example, make it more concrete. I've done a study session for the check ride. I feel like there's always more to do. I'll never learn it all. He's going to ask me a question I don't know. All those things come in. Look over all the tasks I've done and go like, okay. And I create a list that I call the next list. The next list is when I pick it back up, what am I doing next? So the next study session or the next work session, I don't have to spend time figuring out what am I doing next. It's already written out. It's right there. I know exactly where to start and exactly what the first thing I'm going to do is. And then I schedule that so that I know when I'm going to do it. That is crucial for my brain because it helps to give that processing time of this is the body of work that I've done. To your point, John, it's enough. This is what I'm going to do next. I know how I'm going to do it so my brain doesn't sit there and spin in my downtime. How am I going to do that? I've already written down how I'm going to do it. And then it's also scheduled so I know when I'm going to do it. And that helps my brain go like, oh, she's analyzed what she did. She's processed it. She knows what's next and she knows how she's going to do it. And if she doesn't know how, she knows who she's going to ask. It's figured out. Then that's step one. Just get the things organized. Step two is to have a physical ritual. For me, it's closing the laptop with authority. Smack that thing closed. And when I say it, I will close it and I will say, I am shut down for the day. I just say the very simple, boop, I am shut down. And that means like no more checking the email, like I'm done. But I don't know. If you're like me, John, my mind is going to come back. But what about this? But what about that?
And smartphones are the because you can never get away from email. You can never get away from any of those things. I mean, the benefits of having a smartphone are huge, and I won't deny those things because we're all sort of addicted to them. But at the same time, it is one of the leading causes of work not staying at work.
Yes.
Being a pilot's a little bit different, but you take my wife, for example. She leaves work and she constantly gets pinged through the night. And so the days of our forefathers where 9 to 5 at 5 o'clock, you were done and you went home, you spent time with your family, you de-stressed, you did whatever it is that you like to do. Even if you try to consciously do that, you're still constantly getting the buzzing in your ears. And ignoring it only makes it more stressful because now you're wondering like what's going on that I'm not paying attention to. What am I going to walk into the next morning? How much stuff has been piled on me while I've been trying to eat dinner?
Yep, absolutely.
So,
that's a really good point. So the third point that I have for myself when the work thoughts creep back in is I just tell myself, hey, I've completed the work necessary for the day. I've organized my notes well. And because I'm so on top of things, I trust that I can attend to it tomorrow. Like that's how I handle my internal mishigas over all of this. It takes a lot of work and redirection, but once you start doing it and feeling how good it feels, then you want to do more of it. With regards to other people and your own work boundary, that depends on the people and how you manage that. I have started to, I used to run departments where, I had employees and all of that kind of stuff. And I used to tell people after 6:00 at night, you can text me, call me at any time. I manage my phone use how I want to. You're going to leave a message. You're going to send a text. You're going to send an email. I'm not going to reply to it until after 9:00 the next morning, but I will. It will be first thing on my plate, but just know I'm not ignoring you. I just do a hard shutdown. And most people go like, oh, okay, because that lets them know that when it's on their brain, if they want to send the text or the email or the phone call, they can, but they know that they're not going to hear from me. And beyond that, that's called setting good boundaries. But it depends on who you work for and what the vibe is and all of that and what you do. And that's up to each person. But for my own life, I love this three-point process of looking over the tasks, organizing it for the next day, physical ritual of somehow closing the work for the day, and then a sentence I tell myself and I remind myself of when I am tempted to check things again or just check one more time. Because to your point, John, there's no more checking it one more time. You check it that one time, it doesn't help the anxiety. It just reinforces a pattern that you have to check things so you don't feel anxious. And then you just check it again, which creates more anxiety. And then you check it again. So this is where we have to be our own best advocates and say, I am choosing the pace for my life that works for me. There might be things that I miss. You have to decide for you if you're okay with missing it or not and communicate with people you love. So that's the task switching trigger. There is another way that I use this task switching trigger, and that is a physical doorway trigger. Some people don't like this shutdown ritual. Some of my students don't dig it. They like the situational trigger. So when they walk through a specific doorway, say coming home or a doorway at work, whatever it is for you, one of my students, they went under some underpass that was close to their home. And when they went under the underpass, they would click and say, I am done with work. I'm going home to be present with my family. That's my job. And it was like this reset of this doorway being like a cue or a trigger that you are now entering a different mode. I think you're right, John. We have to be responsible in how we use these devices and not let them use us. And that often takes a lot of managing of our relationships with others, which could be a whole episode in and of itself. So I knew I was going to get through all mine. So let's talk then about this last one that I want to really give you guys that John alluded to. I'm going to give you a longer treat bonus episode, actually 2 bonus episodes on, which is this concept of Yoga Nidra. So this is a little bit of a deeper process for when you actually want to really explore giving your body and mind rest. There is so much research that has not only been done anecdotally for 8,000 years with all the yogis and their students who've done this, but now the brain neuroscientist research we have showing that this type of deep rest, which is where you're in between sleeping and waking, has so many positive benefits. It is truly the antidote to all of the Debbie Downer stuff I talked about. So what is Yoga Nidra? They call it yogic sleep. Sometimes you'll hear it pronounced Yoga Nidra, sometimes Yoga Nidra. It's the same thing. And it's basically a guided relaxation where you gradually turn your awareness from the outside world to the inside world, which you consider your body, your breath, and your mind. And then you can kind of find a place where you're sort of drifting in between. So it's like you're not, it's when you're not asleep, but you're not awake. It's like that little in-between state. And you learn to hover in that in-between state, which for me, honestly, took me years because I was such a perfectionist and so chronically high achieving. I was either on or off. Every time I did Yoga Nidra, I fell asleep. Every single time. And that's fine. It took years until I got to the point to where I could actually stay awake during a full 30-minute Yoga Nidra. It took a lot of training. Some people it might be easier for you. It's no problem if you fall asleep during it because your brain is still hearing the teaching. You're still absorbing. You're still getting all the benefits. So no high set of expectations. Basically, all you do to it, I'm going to lead several of them. I'm going to lead a 10-minute version, which is that great break in case of emergency one, or you can't convince yourself to rest any longer than 10 minutes because the world will surely crumble, do that one. Just do the 10-minute one. I'm also going to do a longer 30-minute one. You can really start to train. Stillness is one of the greatest challenges. It gives us the greatest reward. This is the practice that consistently, among everything I've talked about today, my students come back and they say, oh my goodness, I had no idea how much pain I was in until I did that. I feel so much better. Oh my goodness, I had no idea how much I was pushing until I stopped pushing. Oh my goodness, I have some students who are artists. I am so much more creative in my studio now since I started doing this. This is really that peak performance training that I think can be truly transformative. And all you have to do is find a quiet place where you will not be disturbed, lay down, pop open one of the bonus episodes I'll lead. I'm also going to link to 2 other people leading them so you can find whose voice you like and whose style you like, and then just listen and follow the directions. And when it's over, you just move on with your day. I mean, it's like the easiest thing you could ever do. But what happens when we're in this state, when we use the power of our awareness to observe ourselves, has been proven, which is amazing to me, that it shrinks the amygdala. So the amygdala is this little part in the center of your brain that's really responsible, emotional regulation and threat response. And over time, people who've done this practice for 8 weeks, they actually shrink the size of their amygdala, which means that their reactivity to life, or we could say overreactivity to life, has downregulated, has calmed down. So this is evidence that we can regulate our consciousness at the neurotransmitter level. This helps with insomnia. It's said that 15 minutes of this practice is equal to 2 hours of deep sleep. If you struggle with insomnia or you're down route and you're not getting the regular sleep you need, you've had that disrupted sleep, you're flying to London and back 7 times a month, this practice can really help you mitigate those cognitive deficits you're going to experience from that sleep disruption. And as someone who has struggled with insomnia myself personally, initially because of trauma and now because of menopause, this has saved my butt. It has been a game changer. I mentioned earlier that this is a practice you can do after you're learning any new activity, which requires motor planning. New student pilots, I'm looking at you. Go home and do a Yoga Nidra. We have evidence, I will link the studies below, that your body integrates the muscle memory better than if you did not do this type of training after you did your motor planning activity. We get better memory consolidation. One other thing that happens on the sciencey side is that we get neural pruning, which sounds very fancy, but basically it means that what Dr. Adrienne Adler-Neal talked about in her episode with us on neuroplasticity, our brain has the ability to create new pathways all the time. And very often as adults, we get stuck in rigid ways of thinking that are based on the patterning we picked up from society and our parents. We don't actually stop to think, do these thoughts work for me or not? And when we do practices like Yoga Nidra, it allows our mind to prune away those thought patterns and activities that are less helpful for us and can help us to choose pathways that actually serve who we are and who we are becoming. So that's evidence, of shrinking the amygdala is a perfect example of that. You're literally changing your brain structure through this process of meditation and guided relaxation to have a better and more accurate stress response, which is amazing to me. Last little sciencey fact, which is this whole thing about the brain waves, which could be its whole episode. But what we want in the zone is a balance like Michael Jordan had, when you've got the alpha brain waves and the gamma brain waves both functioning at the same time. So alpha is that like calm, relaxed state. Think of it like when you're really relaxed, like for me, it would be like on a beach. You're like super chill. But then you also have the gamma waves, which is like when you're doing that hardcore crosswind landing, at minimums, blah, 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 that hyper-focused, hyper-concentrated. Those two things seem like they're in opposition, to be super relaxed yet hyper-concentrated. And if we don't train ourselves of how to actually be in that state, it's really hard to get there. Yoga Nidra trains you how to find that state so that in moments where you need it in your daily activities, your brain goes, oh, I have the neuroplasticity. I have the pathways to be very calm, very focused at the same time, and to really embody that, like I said with Bruce Lee. I can be like water. I can be very fluid. I can be very strong, solid. At a moment's notice, I have that resiliency to float through the different states. It provides that true neurological rest, which brings it all back to the beginning when I was saying this is your invitation here today to give yourself a break, experiment with some of these techniques, and to really start to assess for yourself, is your pace working for you? And are there ways that you can alter your pace, flow through different states of pace so that you can truly have what you want? Getting the true neurological rest of a Yoga Nidra will enhance your recovery, will enhance your sleep efficiency. It'll counter those hazardous attitudes we have around rest, that I'll rest later, which can really, really show up in your 60s and your 70s as all kinds of chronic diseases. It's going to really be that great course correct. So I'm going to lead a 10-minute one in a bonus episode, a 30-minute one in another bonus episode, as well as provide extra links to other people leading them as well, so that you can really find a style that you like. I really encourage you to experiment with one, especially if you're like, that sounds super sketch, whatever. Especially if you have a lot of resistance to it, totally do it then. Give yourself an experiment where you do it every day for 3 weeks or 3 times a week for 3 weeks. Set a parameter and then just run the experiment, see how you feel at the end of it, and then you can judge. Maybe it is for you, maybe it's not for you, but then you know based on your own experience. What I want for all aviators is to be calm, rested, happy, joyful, and proficient. And I truly believe you can have all of those things without being Looney Tunes, busy all the time. What do you think, John? Thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? I think that's
Oh man, I've been searching for a way to not be Looney Tunes for a very, very long time. Good luck is all I'm telling you. I will try this, but making me not Looney Tunes is good luck.
My husband can personally attest that, I am the bonkers of the bonkiest, for sure. And I always say, it's not being balanced. It's moving towards balance, right? It's is it where am I on that scale of 1 to 10? And what if I could just shift down 1 notch on the old stress-o-meter? Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, I find personally it's really much more fun to flow through life than to fight and to push. And that was a lesson hard won for me, with a whole lot of burnout, a whole lot of illness that probably could have been avoided because I pushed way too hard for way too long until I broke. So, and I still have that tendency. This is why I'm teaching it, because I do this stuff myself. I need to be reminded. And life is hard enough. We try hard enough. Let's try soft and see what happens.
That's all great advice. I appreciate that you shared that with us during the episode. I am personally anxiously awaiting to see what the longer one is like. I know exactly what you said about, losing sleep on the way to London multiple times. In my case, sometimes it could be anywhere, but those long flights are even self-imposed. I mean, we talked about smartphones and stuff, and gosh, yesterday I took a break from what I was doing, looked down at my phone, and wasn't even consciously trying to do anything specifically, really. And I came out of it 2 hours later and went, well, I just wasted the day. And not only did I get absolutely nothing out of it, by the time it was over, then you feel bad because you spent the last 2 hours and you don't even remember where it went.
Yep.
There's a lot of good things to this, and I think it's advice that in a modern world especially we can all take to heart.
Yeah. Amen to that. The phone sucks us in there, doesn't it? Happens to me too. That's why, again, it helps to have other people reminding each other, hey, there's other things to do. Use your smartphone to stream a guided Yoga Nidra by yours truly and see what that feels like.
There you go.
Okay, John, where can the people find us? Because we have people all over the world listening to us. UK,
we do.
People, Australia. What? Amazing.
Yeah, so obviously you have found the podcast, but if you're sharing it with somebody, you can find our podcast on any app you want. So if you don't like where you're streaming it from, truth be told, you can find us on another one. So whether it's Amazon or Apple Podcasts or TuneIn Radio, wherever you like. But of course, no matter where you listen to it, and they all have their own little rating structure, if you could give us a 5-star rating and maybe even a little comment that says, hey, this is great. It helps everybody find us. At the same time, you can find us on social media, pretty much any of the outlets. We are on LinkedIn. We are on Instagram. We are on Facebook. Any interactions are always appreciated. And as we're thinking about episodes, if there's something that you are dying for us to cover, by all means, send us a message, send us a comment. You can find us at calmcockpit.com, and you can email us at calmcockpit@gmail.com. I think that covers our bases right about that, right, Gita?
It certainly does. Thank you. We love to hear from you guys, and from our international listeners, welcome. We are all in this together. Let's keep encouraging each other to be safe, proficient, but happy and joyful as well. We really appreciate you guys listening and contributing in all the ways that you do. So until next time, fly smarter.
Boston Tower 1 departure is Airbus 321. Traffic holding crossing runway 33 left 3 lane.